Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Riders Corner. I'm Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about buying your first ever motorbike. Now, this can be useful for more experienced riders or people that already own a bike, but this channel is devoted for people that haven't bought a bike and are looking at turning themselves into keen motorcyclists. So, in today's episode, we're going to be going through the complete guide of finding the bike, where to look, and we've also got a checklist and a few tips. Look out for the end for the trailer for the next stage of this bike's build. We're going to be doing a complete restoration. I'm really excited for. We've got so much to get through, guys, so let's get started. So the first piece of advice that I would give a new rider, someone that's looking at getting their first ever bike, would be to buy used. It's so much more rewarding because of the work that you do on it. I'm not saying that you'll be fixing it all the time. This is what this checklist is for, after all. It's being able to modify it and play with it without being too scared. I will also say it might be a little controversial, but you probably are going to drop your first ever bike, and that doesn't mean to say it's going to be a big accident. It probably is going to be stupid. I dropped this bike when I was washing it downhill, and I was working on the front wheel. Bike was in gear, but the back wheel was sliding down the hill, and I was absolutely gutted. I didn't even see the kickstand go back. It just went, and I had a real hard time trying to get it back up. At least with this bike, we're going to be doing a series on how to repair it and how to get it looking as good as a new bike, which I think in the long run is going to be more fun than dropping your brand new bike. Most of the people I've known have dropped their first ever bike. It's just the way it is. If you do have a new bike, you will be scared of dropping it then as well, which isn't the best way to learn. So the first part of this guide really is going to be where to look for your bike. I bought mine sight unseen off the internet, and I do not regret that at all. I managed to get like a really good deal. It was the colour I wanted, the body panels that I wanted. It was the right mileage for me. It was the right price. I spoke to the owner, and we had a chat through FaceTime. I've got a few bits that are included in the guide, which can really help if you want to buy sight unseen, which I think if you're buying from the right person can be a really good thing. You can also buy a bike off of a trader, but it can be hard to compare a few different places. You'll be going across quite a few websites, whereas buying a bike independently, you're normally just scrolling through Gumtree, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, and finding guys that are actually online superstores, which are really fun to window shop. But what I would say is be careful, because there are a few hidden fees which make the price of the bike actually a little bit more than what it says on the website. So just be careful with that. So if you know exactly what bike you want, I'd say you should definitely do some online research. There's loads of resources out there. Stuff like YouTube can really help you get an idea of the feel of the bike and what it sounds like and how it compares to other bikes. There's loads of really good reviews for loads of bikes, but don't neglect the web. You should be looking at buyer's guides. In that you kind of get a bit of information on like previous recalls, common issues. You might find the exhaust rusts on the bike you want. At least then when you go and look at the bike, you can have, let's see if it's been replaced or fixed or recalled, or if it's got any of these problems that might be a problem for you. So now hopefully you've got a bit of confidence. You definitely know exactly what bike you want, and you're going to start shopping around. Now that you're armed with the right information, you can actually start asking questions to these independent sellers. So when you're buying independently, especially if you're going to go sight unseen like the way I did, you need to be looking for red flags. It's worth kind of getting an idea of the person that you can be buying this bike off of. So you want to be buying off of a keen motorcyclist, but how do you distinguish between a keen motorcyclist and everyone else? Well, the advert is usually got a picture of a really nice bike, which has been tastefully modified. It's got a really good description, loads of pictures, and it's got all the information about the bike. Who you don't want to be buying the bike off is two people really. The obvious one is the bad thief. These are usually like a cheaper bike. It'd be the cheapest one online, but you speak to them and it's got like one picture of it. Be a bad picture, usually at night time, it's got a broken steering lock, might be missing keys. One of the best ways to sort of probe and get a feel for them is to ask how many spare keys has the bike got, if it's got the V5, the logbook. Check frame number matches that, obviously. So you want to kind of get an idea about this person and the bike, and if they've only had it for a week, or you know, they haven't got any older pictures of it or any history of it, it's worth walking away from and moving on. The next type of person that you could be buying a bike off is the most dangerous. It's definitely the good thief. These might be classier bikes, so they will be selling it for more money, but you should be wary of this more because they got more area to spend money on the bike repairing it. Obviously a thief isn't going to replace the steering lock on a £200–300 bike that they're selling. So someone that's just stolen a valuable bike might spend a bit more time actually getting it looking like it's not stolen. They still want to sell their bike pretty fast. They will push you. They probably will say that they got plenty of people coming to view the bike. I don't think that should matter anyway. I think it should be first come, first serve. If someone's really pushing you, you can always say that you're looking at other bikes as well. You got plenty of choice just like they have. If they're reluctant to give you the registration plate, any sort of information about where they live, again, if they're missing the logbook or spare keys or anything like that, the good thief will do a better job, but it's still never worth it. The next guy is the mechanic. Some are very genuine and will take a used bike that has been neglected and just need a bit of TLC, do some work on it and sell it for a profit. So I'm going to avoid talking about them people because they are usually the keen motorcyclists that we're going to get to next. So the reason why you want to avoid the dodgy mechanics is they know when to sell the bike. They might tell you that being that they're a mechanic, they have all the knowledge. Finally, we have the keen motorcyclist. This is the perfect person to buy a bike from. If your bike is being sold by a keen motorcyclist, then you're in luck. If they're trying to sell the bike fast, it's usually because they want another one, or they're just trying to clear up some space for their projects. Like I said, their bike's usually been cleaned, it's tastefully modified. They're not going to let the bike get dirty, so when you view it, it'll be spotless. They've probably owned the bike for about a year, maybe more. They will usually have loads of good quality pictures, loads of service history, all the modifications that they've done, they've got the receipts for. This really is the type of person that you should be buying the bike off of. I would consider spending a little bit more buying off of this person than someone that's used the bike for commuting, which we're going to get onto next. So the commuter. This bike is usually got hand warmers, a stinking high mileage, and it's dirty. It's as simple as that, really. They're usually poorly maintained. They'll sell it when it starts breaking. It's not to say that you can get a few good ones. You get a better deal buying off of a commuter than you would off of a keen motorcyclist, because the keen motorcyclist knows exactly what his bike is worth. I would consider paying a little bit extra. So now that I'm sat here, I keep on thinking of more motorcyclists that you can buy from. You could buy a bike off of a racer. This isn't too bad. I wouldn't rule it out if you're getting a really good deal, but you need to beware of issues to look out for, really. They got loads of pictures of them racing bikes on their Facebook profile or in the house. More on how to get on the house later. Got a little secret tip. We've also got loads of modifications. I'm not talking just tasteful ones. Look out for holes in bolts, which is usually for a lock wire. Look for crash damage or decals. So the crash damage might not actually just be on the fairing. It might be that they stacked it on the racetrack with race fairings on, come back home, put the street fairings back and then sell it. So be cautious. It doesn't mean to say that you should completely avoid these bikes, especially if you are planning on racing it yourself. It can be really helpful, but look for sprocket wear. Check your gearbox works really well. Make sure everything runs really smooth. Finally, check brake discs for warping. They can get really hot. If you start getting too many red flags, I probably would walk away. So if you're ever unsure and you're buying a bike and you've maybe got like one red flag, you're not confident to hand over the money yet, it can be really cheeky, but you can ask to go for a pee in the house. So you could consider this an invasion of privacy, but I think it sounds much cooler if you just say it's called tactical recon. You go in, go straight to the toilet. I'm not saying go through the drawers, but in a keen motorcyclist's home, he's got pictures of motorbikes. In a racer's home, he's usually got pictures of him racing motorbikes. So the bad thief and the good thief aren't going to let you in the house. So by doing our tactical recon, you might find the final red flag that makes you walk away from the deal. Or this could be what actually makes you buy the bike. Beware though, it is a little bit cheeky, and don't take the mick. Just go for a pay. So hopefully you found your dream bike and you're buying it from a keen motorcyclist like us. So I know this is what you've been waiting for. I've made a complete motorcycle buyers checklist, which will be available down in the description. We're going to talk through it now because I've got a few extra pieces of advice that will help when you go through this checklist. One of the first tips is to not forget your torch. It's really helpful looking under the bike, but it can be really helpful for checking the bodywork. So you do want to be checking in good conditions. You don't want to be viewing the bike at night time or in the rain, as this can hide scratches and oil residue on the floor. By using a torch you can really get in there. Before you get there, have a look at the MOT history online. Just by typing in the registration plate you can find all of the previous advisories and the vehicle mileages at every MOT. So go through, build up a bigger picture of what the bike's actually like. This is something you can do in your online research, of course, and it's always worth doing. I do it for every bike and car that I buy. So when you get there, you want to use your torch and you want to be having a look for visual checks, rust and leaks. Let's have a complete walk around and do a scan. So maybe start at the top or the back, work your way around and check every area. You're going to be specifically looking for signs of a crash damage. Say you've got a knock on the slider. Obviously that's protected the fairing, but you might find damage on the bar end. But the bar end might have been replaced because it's only a tenner. So you might want to check the exhaust and specifically as well also the caliper. That's also another forgotten aspect that people miss, and if that's got a scratch on it, it can be quite expensive to replace it all, so it builds up. Foot pegs are another good one, but obviously like mine they can be replaced. So you want to have a chat with the owner of the bike about the common issues that you might have found in your research. Check, make sure any recalls or anything like that has been done. So now you want to ask the owner about the history of the bike. Obviously you want the service history in the logbook, and when you got that you can check the VIN number. It's usually on the frame or right of the headstock tube. You want to ask about his history of the bike. So if say there's a little scratch or something, you can say how did this happen, say it's a dent or a bracket that's bent. You want to start building up a picture of the life that the bike has had. So you could also check the suspension setup, and this is usually missed, but it's such an easy thing to check. So you want to apply the front brakes, push down. You want it to spring down smoothly, return and settle. You don't want it to take too long. My back is actually shockingly bad. Sorry, that's terrible. It drops down nice, but the rebound is very slow, so I'm going to figure that out, and we're going to do an episode repairing that sooner or later. So now that you've done a suspension test, you just want to have a look at the actual forks and the shock itself. Check for any leaks, corrosion and pitting in the stanchion legs. Any pitting can cause leaks in the O-rings later on down the line. It might not be an issue just on the drive. He might have already cleaned it, so by doing this suspension test you may find a little bit of oil, but that will build up over a bike ride. So whilst you're there, you want to have a look at the brake. Make sure the caliper is on nice and strong. The brake pads have got plenty of wear. The disc has got plenty of wear. But also you want to check for vibration in the disc itself. So what you can do is just move the front wheel by holding the disc. You might get a little bit of wobble in a floating disc brake, which has got the mounts in, but these can wear over time and you end up with maybe 2 or 3 mil of play, which probably won't actually be able to tell on the test ride. Obviously you just have to factor this in, that you can end up needing new brakes if you buy the bike. So you want to have a look at the oil filler cap. So we just take this off and have a look underneath. There should be no white under there. If you do get a milky substance under there, that's a really big sign of head gasket fault. For something so quick and easy to check, it's worth doing even if you've got a bike already. Just keep an eye on it, you know. So also check for your lock wire hole. Oil filler cap is a really big one. On a racetrack, this has to be locked onto the bike to prevent it falling off and oil going everywhere. So if that's got a hole in it, start looking for more holes. This has probably been raced. You're buying a bike from a racer. Another way to tell if the bike's been raced is looking at the chicken strips. A beginner will have big ones and a racer will have none. King motorcyclists will have small ones, but It's just a guide, don't take it too seriously. Some people definitely do. If you got big chicken strips, checking the condition of the tyre is a really good thing. You want to look for a flat spot down the centre of the tyre, especially if you're buying off the commuter. Check for even tyre wear, make sure you've got plenty of tread left in the tyres. So a well-maintained bike will have a chain that is oiled, lubed. It won't have excessive play, so just have a feel for that. You're normally expecting about an inch from bottom to top, but anywhere up to 2 inches is okay. If you've got this bike which is just rattling around and you can feel it, it's really bad. You're buying a bike that's not been maintained very well. If they've avoided doing that, knowing that they're going to sell it, I would start worrying about the other things that they might also be avoiding. So whilst you're there, you want to check the sprocket. You don't want shark toothing, you want a nice lot of meat left on the sprocket itself. You don't want these really chamfered points or mountaintop points. You get loads of different names for it, but make sure the sprocket looks like a sprocket. It's got plenty of life left. Screw in for the keys. Before you start the bike though, check and make sure that the pillion seat lifts up. It's not a big issue, but whilst you're in there, just have a little look around, make sure there's no rust on the subframe. Check the fuel filler cap works. If you've got spare keys as well, check them. So you want to put the keys in the ignition, test the steering lock. Remember, a broken steering lock is a sign of a stolen bike. So now you want to get on the bike to make sure that all the dash lights come on, warning lights, that sort of thing. Check the indicators and brake lights, dip beam, headlights. Push every button you can. Don't forget the horn. If it's got a fuel gauge, check that. Make sure you've got enough fuel in for the ride home. So if everything looks fine and you're really happy with the bike, it's time to start it up. You want a nice fast start up, ideally from cold. Make sure the engine is cold first. You want to avoid anything that sounds like it's rattling itself to pieces whilst trying to start. Once it's going, make sure it's idling nice. Check the gauges, make sure everything's fine. Next, you can get a feel for the clutch whilst it's idling. Pull in the clutch. You should hear a note change in the engine. Unless you're looking at a Ducati of a dry clutch, you shouldn't be getting any weird noises. So with the engine running, you want to have another quick look around the bike. So get your torch, have a look underneath to check for any new oil leaks now that there's oil pressure. So you want to do a couple of snappy revs now. Don't rev the tits off of it. You just want a nice response, clean, smooth response as you would expect from anything other than Harley. I think your best tool here is your Hero. You want to make sure it sounds like it does in the YouTube videos. If you got a 4-cylinder engine and it sounds like a V-twin, there's definitely something wrong. So this one could be a bit weird for the owner. You want to do an exhaust compression test, and it might be worth explaining what you're doing first. You're going to take a rag or your hand and cover the end of the exhaust whilst the engine is running, and it will bog the engine slightly because it's fighting against you, but the build-up of pressure in the exhaust system will show you any exhaust leaks. So you're not doing this for very long, you're just making sure it's not leaking anywhere. You just want to blanket off, run your hand through, listen and make sure you don't hear any exhaust leaking. Whilst you're there, have a look at the colour of the exhaust gas, especially on startup. If it's got white smoke, that can be natural, that can just be condensation or a build-up of water in the pipe, especially if it's just washed it. But don't ignore it if it keeps on happening. So white is indicative of a head gasket fault, black is over-fueling, and blue is oil burning. You can tell a lot from the engine just by the exhaust. So make sure you get something that looks and sounds clean. So you're going to turn off the bike now. I would say what the best way to do would be to turn it off with the emergency cutoff or with the kickstand. It's good to test both if you can. And finally you want to just jump underneath again, make sure there's no leaks. So I hope that the checklist has been really good for you guys. Let me know what you think, what can be added in the comments section. I hope that the more experienced guys can chip in with this. So thank you for staying so far. Just for you guys, I'm going to give you 3 extra tips for when you look at buying your first bike. Go with your head, not your heart. I know what it's like when you see your dream bike for the first time in someone else's garage. You want it. It's going to be all yours. But make sure you're getting it for the right price. Make sure you're happy with it. And if you've got a couple red flags, you need to really get them through your head and make sure you're buying the right bike for you. On the back of that, you shouldn't show them how interested you are. You can say that you've seen a few, but if you say, I specifically want this colour, or I love the exhaust, or I love this, I love that, they are going to have that to bargain against you with. Don't let them use your own passion against you. So tip number 2, just be fair when you negotiate with them. So you should only be really negotiating the price with the problems that you found when you viewed the bike. So if you found that the bike's been dropped, none of that was mentioned in the advert, you could use that to negotiate with, but you don't want to waste anyone's time. Don't expect someone to drop their price, especially if you're buying from the keen motorcyclist. They know how much their bike is worth, and they're not going to let anyone take the mick out of them. Finally guys, tip number 3, don't miss out on a fantastic deal on a great bike just because you're negotiating and you're not getting anywhere. If you walk away from a bike over 50 quid, you're going to regret it. I'm not going to let anyone miss out on this amazing hobby just because they couldn't agree with the seller. So if you think you've learned something today, please leave a like. This is what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to teach people. So if you're not learning anything, I'm doing something wrong. If you want to see more stuff like this, I've got such a huge build coming up, please subscribe. So if you've just bought your brand new used bike, you've got to look at the new series that I've got coming out soon. We're going to be turning this bike back to its former glory and hopefully better. I've got so many ideas, tips, mods and tutorials that we've got to get through. But finally we're going to have this bike looking absolutely fantastic. So, that was the first episode guys. This took a lot longer than I thought it would to make. If you think you've gained something today, please leave a like just so that I can see that I'm doing my job properly. Our goal of this channel is to help people learn, show people the way of the motorcyclist. So I'm aiming that you can learn something on every video. I've mentioned a couple of times that we're going to be doing a rebuild on this one. We're going to be starting off with a paint correction series. Next time you see this bike, we're going to be getting it gleaming. I really hope anyway. I've not done a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be showing you guys, so it'd be fun because we're just going to learn it all together. I love motorbikes, I just like talking about them, so bringing you guys along with me hopefully is going to be a laugh anyway. So obviously this channel is for people that maybe haven't got a bike yet, so maybe a paint correction series isn't for you, but I'm going to be doing a video on top 10 first bikes, which I think could be quite useful. It's not going to be anything controversial, it's just my opinion, and I'm not trying to cause a rage in the comments section. It's just going to be some of my favourite bikes and what people have learned on around me that I thought were either terrible ideas or fantastic ones, so stay tuned for that as well. So I've been filming this on a GoPro. I've got my helmet here and I've just put on a GoPro mount. Hopefully we can do some really cool motor vlogs. I'm really excited to get motor vlogging. It's going to be a learning curve, obviously. Honestly, I'm buzzing to get to learn the GoPro, and I hope that you guys really enjoy my content, but I'm just trying to do the best that I can anyway. If you got any tips, please let me know in the comment section. I hope that you enjoyed watching me struggle to talk to a camera as much as I've enjoyed making this YouTube video. Anyway, right out.